What's up out there? Diablo 4 released back in June 2023 to record sales. At the time, I was deep into Path of Exile and concerned how Diablo would be monetized, plus the mixed reviews didn't help, so I gave it a hard pass but followed its progress. In August 2023, the game went on sale for the first time, so I decided to give it a shot and see how it was for myself. In hindsight, I could have waited another couple months and got a better discount, plus the game on Steam, but it wasn't an option at that point. Prior to playing it, if you'd asked me why there were mixed reviews, I'd have said bugs, bland story, broken skills, or things like that. Never in my life would I have considered the game to be boring, but when I fired it up for the first time, I was floored at just how boring a mainline Diablo entry was. I hated the class I started with, how much walking there was, how much dialogue and cutscenes there were, and pretty much every aspect of the game. It looked good and actually performed well, the game just sucked. I tried a few different characters across the first few seasons and documented them on the channel, but I couldn't stick with it for any length of time. Pretty much uninstalled the game and moved on at that point. Fast forward to the recent 2024 Steam winter sale where I got a wild hair and snagged Diablo 4 with the Vessel of Hatred expansion. The price wasn't all that much more to get the game including the expansion on Steam versus just the expansion on Battle.net, so here we are. I have since completed the main campaign and I'm happy to say that after a year and a half in the cooker, it is definitely not as bad as it was. There are still things I don't like, but it's much more tolerable. We'll start with the first character I tried, which was a Whirlwind Barbarian in Season 1, which was a terrible class to start with. Barbarians start with an empty Fury pool, and you have to use skills that don't hit for all that much damage in order to fill the tank, so to speak. Once you have built up some Fury, you can finally use the good skills, but it took quite a bit of time to build up enough Fury to do anything fun. Also, the fun skills only last a few short seconds before you're back to slapping monsters with a feather duster. There is a dodge, but that has a cooldown and takes a while to reset, so getting in close with skills that do little to no damage meant taking a lot of damage yourself. Monsters felt spongy, so having to walk everywhere for quests meant going through numerous packs of monsters along the way, which was also very frustrating and time-consuming. That character lasted about 7 hours before I got pissed off and quit playing. I tried another barbarian following someone's guide this time, but that only lasted 3 hours. I just could not vibe with this game at all. When Season 2 hit, I gave it another go with the rogue this time. They had supposedly fixed a number of things. That character actually lasted about 10 hours but crapped out shortly after getting the horse unlocked, and I left things there for quite a while. After buying this on Steam, I decided to run a sorcerer. I focused mainly on the fire side of skills, going into the Hydras from days of old, and actually had a pretty good time. Campaign took me just under 11 hours to complete, where How Long to Beat says an average completion time is 26 hours. You may wonder how I completed the story so quickly compared to the average. First and foremost, I had already done the grind to unlock the horse with my rogue way back when. If you're not aware, the horse doesn't unlock until after you finish Act 3, which took me about 9 hours. Good thing is it's unlocked account-wide at that point, so having the horse significantly increases the speed you can move around the open world throughout the entire game. Besides the horse, the boost in XP gains is pretty significant too. I know they changed gear a little bit and maybe boosted drop rates as well, but the bigger XP gains means faster leveling and more points into skills to gain character power. So combining the XP boost with already having the horse unlock cut the campaign basically in half time-wise. We do now have the option to completely skip the campaign in a new season, which I will definitely be taking advantage of going forward. The campaign itself isn't too bad. I have a lot of issues we'll discuss here in a minute, but the overall story is pretty decent. In fact, I find this to be a much better story than the one Last Epoch tells. Once you get into Act 6, this thing really takes off and goes straight to hell. So, let's get on to the complaints. There is a lot of walking in this game. Blizzard chose to make this an open world game, which is an interesting design choice for an ARPG. However, you don't get the horse to speed things along until after Act 3 finishes. Most other open world games have you in the saddle in the first hour. A lot of your story quests are all over the place, having you stomp across the open world and getting into fights with spongy monsters along the way. Having the horse unlocked like I did this go around meant speeding right through the monsters and avoiding all that wasted time entirely. That said, you do still have to do a significant amount of walking once you get through the open world. A very bad habit Blizzard has in this game is making you walk down an absurdly long and empty corridor before getting to the objective. For instance, the first time you meet Inarius, you have to go up several flights of stairs a few screens long just to initiate a cutscene at the end.
Kneel before him, and remember, you are small, wonderful.
Many story-related areas have several empty rooms to walk through or very long corridors to traverse just to advance the story. Speaking of cutscenes and dialogue, this game has an absurd amount of both. If you want to actually follow the story and not skip things, you'll have to endure long conversations and cutscenes. That's not necessarily bad, but many times you'll have back-to-back cutscenes instead of one long one. I guess it's a good thing if you need to stop, but it feels like a slog when you think you're going to continue playing the game only to click on another cutscene. Compounding the cutscenes, a lot of the dialogue has this weird cadence. NPCs will say their lines but pause at every period, comma, and ellipsis. It's something that bugs the hell out of me every time I have to listen to anyone talk, and you can even see it in the closed caption text. The only NPCs that don't seem to do this all that much are Lorath and Donan.
Are you here?
You're not him. Who are you? The chopping. It stopped and I thought he was coming for me next.
During normal dialogue, you can at least read the closed caption and mouse click to advance the discussion, but there are unskippable floating dialogues over an NPC, and then the cutscenes that if you're following the story are likely not going to skip. The game also has a bad habit of making you stop and wait for someone to finish talking or sleeping before you can click on the quest marker to continue. The desert bit where you have to wait on Mashif for a few moments during the storm was particularly egregious. Wouldn't have been bad if it was just one storm, but there are 3 and digital storms to boot. It's not like we were waiting on actual wind to stop before continuing. Other time wasters this game enjoys are progress bars on picking quest items up and opening doors. Things which should be instant have a progress bar for some stupid reason. It feels to me like they listened to gamers who say they value a game's dollar per hour and added as many things to nudge that timer up as they could. It only costs a few seconds per line of speech that pauses after every punctuation mark, but given the amount of dialogue this game has, it really adds up to minutes quite quickly. On the gameplay side of things, initially the XP gains were really low, and something I hadn't considered until playing now was how much those gains mattered. It's pretty amazing how leveling up as quick as you do now brings the build online very quickly. It was fast enough that more than once I was thinking to myself that it was too fast, as in I just clicked my level up, watched another cutscene, and got another level up. I'd also say that monsters didn't feel nearly as spongy now as they did back then, so maybe their health pool got a pass along the way as well. So there are still some things lingering around that I just don't like. The weird dialogue cadence and progress bars on ignorant things, but largely once you get the horse unlocked and all the changes they've made over the last year and a half, the game really feels good. It's probably a good time to mention the open world before I forget like Blizzard has. To be perfectly blunt, the open world style of game was completely wasted as far as I've played so far. There hasn't been one event I've tried that was worth doing more than once, and as I understand it, you can simply teleport to dungeons, which completely nullifies any use of the open world design. Probably also a good time to mention that I haven't bothered grinding out Lilith statues or Renown yet. I have a feeling those are another mind-numbing grind. Seasonal stuff probably takes place in the open world, and then there's the world boss, but otherwise the thing is a bust. Having this a hub-based game like most other ARPGs would have been the right call, and unless they invest into something more meaningful, the open world idea for this game was a complete waste of time. So after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, I can finally say I've actually completed the Diablo 4 campaign. There are a lot of ups and downs with it. The Path of Exile 2 campaign absolutely smokes this one by a mile, but at the same time, this far exceeds the Last Epoch campaign by about the same distance. Diablo 4 is by no means a perfect game, but in its current state, it's actually kind of enjoyable. I'm going to play through the Vessel of Hatred expansion and take part in the current seasonal content, so it's possible the open world will finally be useful and hopefully they ditch the voice lines with frequent pauses in this expansion. I'll also finally be able to get my Paragon levels and see what the end game is like. Probably going to hate it with a passion since I've heard it's basically only grinding out dungeons over and over again, which gets old pretty fast for me. Anyway, the game has significantly changed over the last year and a half, and I can honestly say it was fun to play this time around. I will most likely continue to check this out in future seasons, so we'll probably be back with more, but that is going to do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.